What's going on, guys? MMA on the team. We got the fight picks. Man, what a crazy, crazy scenario with this whole Alex Caceres deal. Because, first of all, Alex Caceres was supposed to fight Giga Chikadze, and then that got canceled. Chikadze has COVID-19. Get well soon. But then he's supposed to face Kevin Croom, and then that falls out. And then I'd say about, 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago?
Less, I
Our
think.
time was announced that he's going to be facing on Austin Springer. I will pass it on to Zach to start us off, but I first want to mention this. Giga Chikadze is currently 10-2. Who is one
Stealing
of
this.
those last losses by Giga
Can't
Chikadze?
believe you.
And I will pass it on to Zach.
Yes, it's Austin Springer beat Springer beat Giga Chikadze on the Contender Series, and he choked him out. But as was mentioned to me earlier, before we started recording, he got lit up before that fight. And I want to spend most of this time talking about Bruce Leroy himself, Alex Caceres, probably the definition of a wily veteran. This guy has seen it all and been in there with some of the absolute best. And yeah, his record is up and down, up and down, up and down. But the reason that the UFC doesn't cut him is because he doesn't go on big losing streaks. He always comes back with a win, and he always looks fairly impressive in his fights. And first of all, the one thing you have to mention when you talk about Alex Caceres is his striking volume. Like, that's the one thing. He's very tall, he's very rangy, and he likes to throw a lot of those just like solid straights. He'll throw in a couple hooks as well, mix it up with some flashy kick. And that's pretty much the basis of Caceres' kicking game. He doesn't really like to be in close with people. And he's also really, really good moving off the back foot. That's another thing. We saw him drop Chase Hooper, although, to be fair, Chase Hooper does not have the best striking defense, but that was a very impressive knockdown as he was moving off the back foot. You do not see that very often. And another underrated aspect of Alex Caceres' game is the jiu-jitsu. He has a very, very solid jiu-jitsu game, but that's a double-edged sword because the main way that Alex Caceres loses is through a submission. Most of his, and especially rear naked chokes, those are pretty much the kryptonite of Alex Caceres. And I don't think Austin Springer can do that to him. Keep in mind, he's taking this fight very, very soon, and he's coming off a 2-year layoff. And if you know me, you know one thing that I really, really like to fade these guys coming from the regional scene who are short notice, that are taking these fights off of year-plus layoffs because they haven't been in the gym training for all of this time, you know? And especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, if he didn't have a fight, he probably wasn't training as intensely as he would have. And here's the thing. I do think that Springer can knock him out. It's entirely a possibility. This is fighting. Anything can happen. But I do believe that the ranginess of Alex Caceres and the ground game, keep in mind, he does have a good ground game, and I do think he can take it to the ground if he wants. I think that Alex Caceres can win this fight in all three ways. I think he can knock him out, can submit him, but more likely, I think it's going to go to a decision.
All right, well, that passes on to me. Man, crazy, crazy scenario, as I mentioned. Just going through what I usually go through with looking at Austin Springer, and man, impressive record. You mentioned how he's got the long layoff, and that's something that I think really kind of holds me back from picking Austin Springer here. But man, I'm gonna go with it. I assume he'll be the underdog, so hey, maybe I'll make myself some money. But I'm gonna go with Springer on this one. The long layoff is something that really, as I mentioned, kind of holds me back. But looking at out of his 13 fights, he's never lost a decision. He typically wins by finish. And then, man, he hasn't lost a decision yet. Moving over to Alex Caceres. So you were mentioning how he could knock him out, he could submit him. And what I noticed and what I have noticed about Alex Caceres, in his past 13 fights, he doesn't have a submission win or a KO win, other than Rolando Dai has a TKO eye injury finish. So I guess you could call it a knockout. But in battle, I guess you could call it in battle, KO or sub, he hasn't had one since 13, 14 fights ago, albeit against Sergio Pettis. Pretty impressive win on that one. And I'm going to go with Austin Springer on this one. I just think I just think the fire that he's got, and then not typically very many short fill-ins, and this is definitely a short fill-in, comes in and wins the fight. But I'll take him on this one. I just think that, assuming that he's been out 2 years and he's willing to take a fight, within what, like 3 days, 4 days. And just the fact that he's willing to take it, I assume he's been training and I assume he's been ready. So I picture him going in there, and I picture him kind of trying to finish Caceres in this one. Although I don't think he can get it done, I think that he can piece him up to a decision, because from what you mentioned, and something I've mentioned for a very, very long time, is Chase Hooper's striking defense is absolutely horrid. I think the first 5 punches Caceres threw in that fight just absolutely rocked Hooper to the point where he almost got a knockdown. And one thing I noticed in the Caceres fight against Hooper is that when Caceres did knock him down, he didn't go in for the kill, and that was one thing that I was like, wait, why didn't he go in for the kill there? Because he dropped him to his knees. And when you get an undefeated prospect rocked like that, you'd think he'd want to get in closer and try to hit him with an uppercut, get a knee in there, get a Muay Thai clinch, something. But no, Caceres backed off a little bit, and I was kind of shocked by it. So, man, Austin Springer, I just think this guy's going to come to play, beating a guy who Caceres was first off supposed to fight, and not only beating him but finishing him. I'm impressed by that alone. Can't say too much, because as much as high of confidence that I must come off as I'm projecting, it's really not that high of confidence because I haven't seen this guy fight before. But looking at the stats and from what I know about Caceres, having watched his past few fights, I don't know, man. I just think this is a better opportunity for Springer to go here and win this fight. If Caceres wins this fight, I assume it's going to look a lot like the Chase Hooper fight, but hopefully a little bit of better striking defense from Springer's side. So we do have a disagreement on this one. I will be going with the short fill-in and the underdog, hopefully a huge underdog, because hopefully I can make some cash. But we want to know what you guys think. So make sure you guys are letting us know in the comments who you got for this short fill-in. Austin Springer taking on Alex Caceres. Man, exciting fight from the whole stakes of it. It'll be interesting to see who can win. Having Caceres had 2 different opponents that he thought he could have been fighting. If he can go out there and beat Springer, hey, man, that's pretty good. And then obviously if Springer could go in there on 3-4 days notice, whatever it is, and then go in there with a win, man, that's very, very impressive. And I assume we'll see him in the UFC, win or loss in this one, not only because of his record, but because he's willing to take a fight on such short notice. But I digress. Talking about this fight, I want to know what you guys think. As we mentioned, we're 1-1. You guys got to break the ties. So comment who you got for the pick. Don't do it before the fight. Don't be a pansy. Do it before the fight and let us know. Like the video. Check out the other Fight Pick videos.